In the heart of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, there stands a modest yet profoundly important brick building. This is Independence Hall. It is not a grand palace or a towering monument, it is a place of human scale built for ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Its importance comes not from its size, but from the ideas that were debated and adopted within its walls. Here, the United States of America was born. This building is more than just a historic site, it is the cradle of American democracy. It stands as a testament to the belief that people can govern themselves, a radical idea that changed the course of history forever. Its story is the story of America itself, full of hope, struggle, and the enduring pursuit of freedom. The significance of Independence Hall extends far beyond the borders of the United States. It is a symbol of liberty for people everywhere. The principles of freedom and self-determination that were articulated here have inspired countless movements for independence and democracy around the globe. When you stand before its simple facade, you are standing on hallowed ground, a place where the very definition of government was reimagined. It represents a pivotal moment in human history, when the old order of kings and monarchs was challenged by a new vision of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. This makes it a site of universal importance, a place where the world can come to understand the origins of modern democratic ideals. The story of Independence Hall is a deeply human one. It is about real people with flaws and fears who gathered in difficult times to make monumental decisions. They were merchants, farmers, lawyers, and physicians. They came from different colonies with different interests, yet they managed to find common ground. They argued, they compromised, and ultimately, they created something new and lasting. The building itself seems to hold the echoes of their voices and the weight of their deliberations. It reminds us that history is not made by abstract forces, but by individuals who dare to dream of a better future and have the courage to act on those dreams. Today, on the 22nd of July, 2025, Independence Hall continues to be a place of pilgrimage. People from all walks of life and from every corner of the world come to see where it all began. They come to connect with the past and to reflect on the meaning of freedom in their own lives. In a world that is often filled with division and uncertainty, this building offers a message of hope. It tells us that great things are possible when people come together in a spirit of cooperation and with a shared commitment to noble ideals. It is a reminder that the journey toward a more perfect union is ongoing, and that each generation has a role to play in upholding the legacy that was born within these walls. Construction of this historic building began long before the idea of American independence had taken hold. In 1732, the Pennsylvania colonial legislature decided it needed a proper home. Up to that point, they had been meeting in rented spaces, which was hardly fitting for the most prosperous and influential colony in British North America. They wanted a building that would reflect the importance of Pennsylvania and serve as a proud symbol of its government. The man chosen to oversee the design was a prominent lawyer named Andrew Hamilton, who was then the Speaker of the Assembly. He worked alongside master builder Edmund Woolley to bring the vision to life, creating a structure that was both functional and elegant. The building, originally known as the Pennsylvania State House, was designed in the Georgian architectural style. This style was popular in Britain and its colonies during the 18th century, characterized by its symmetry, proportion, and simple classical details. The main block of the building, with its central clock tower, was completed in 1748. The tower itself, which would later house the famous Liberty Bell, was finished in 1753. The design was meant to project a sense of order, stability, and dignity. It was a statement that the government of Pennsylvania was a serious and permanent institution, worthy of respect. The choice of red brick and white wood trim created a handsome contrast that remains visually appealing to this day. The original purpose of the State House was to serve as the main government building for the colony of Pennsylvania. The East Wing housed the Colonial Assembly, where laws were made for the colony. The West Wing was home to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, where justice was administered. For decades, it was the center of colonial life in Philadelphia, a place where the day-to-day business of governing was carried on. It was a place of local importance, but few could have imagined the historic, world-changing events that were destined to unfold within its rooms. It was built to serve a colony, but it would become the birthplace of a nation. The construction took place over several decades, with wings and other additions being completed over time. This slow and steady process reflects the careful, deliberate nature of colonial craftsmanship. Every brick was laid with precision, every piece of wood carved with care. The men who built it were creating more than just a structure. They were building a foundation for their community's future. They could not have known that they were also preparing a stage for one of the greatest dramas in human history. The solid, dependable character of the building they erected would provide a fitting backdrop for the momentous debates and decisions that would shape the destiny of a continent. As tensions with Great Britain escalated in the 1770s, the Pennsylvania State House became the natural meeting place for colonial leaders. The Second Continental Congress convened in its assembly room in May of 1775. These were dangerous times. The first shots of the American Revolution had already been fired at Lexington and Concord. The delegates who gathered in Philadelphia faced a momentous choice. Should they seek reconciliation with the Crown, or should they pursue the radical path of independence? The debates were intense and impassioned. Men like John Adams of Massachusetts argued forcefully for a complete break, while others, like John Dickinson of Pennsylvania, urged caution and a final attempt at peace. Throughout the spring and early summer of 1776, the momentum for independence grew. On June 7th, Richard Henry Lee of Virginia introduced a formal resolution calling for the colonies to be free and independent states. This bold move set in motion the drafting of a formal declaration. The Congress appointed a committee of 5 to write the document: Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston. The primary author was the young and eloquent Thomas Jefferson, who worked tirelessly in a rented room nearby to craft the words that would express the colony's aspirations. He drew upon the philosophical ideas of the Enlightenment, particularly the writings of John Locke, to articulate the case for human rights and self-government. The final draft of the Declaration of Independence was presented to the Congress for review. For 2 days, the delegates debated the text, making changes and edits. They were not just signing a document. They were putting their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the line. To sign the declaration was an act of treason against the British Crown, punishable by death. Despite the grave risks, on July 4, 1776, the Congress formally adopted the final text. This was the moment the United States of America was conceptually born. The assembly room of the Pennsylvania State House was transformed from a colonial legislature into the birthplace of a new nation, founded on the revolutionary idea that all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights. The adoption of the Declaration of Independence was a turning point not just for America, but for the world. It was a bold statement that government derives its power from the consent of the governed. It laid out a vision of a society based on liberty, equality, and the pursuit of happiness. While the war for independence would rage on for 7 more years, the decision made in Independence Hall on that hot July day set the course. The words written by Jefferson and approved by the delegates have echoed through the centuries, inspiring generations of people to fight for their own freedom. The assembly room became a sacred space, a symbol of the courage it takes to declare independence and create a new future. After the Revolutionary War, the young United States faced a new set of challenges. The country was governed under a weak framework called the Articles of Confederation. This system gave most of the power to the individual states, leaving the central government unable to effectively manage the nation's finances, defense, or commerce. By 1787, it was clear that a new form of government was needed. And so, delegates from 12 of the 13 states were once again called to Philadelphia. They returned to the same familiar room where the Declaration of Independence had been adopted, the assembly room of the Pennsylvania State House, to undertake another monumental task: to create a new, stronger, and more lasting government. The Constitutional Convention convened in May 1787, and the delegates who gathered were among the most brilliant minds in America. George Washington, the hero of the Revolution, was unanimously elected to preside over the proceedings, his commanding presence lending an air of gravity and purpose to the meetings. Benjamin Franklin, now in his 80s and frail, provided wisdom and a steadying influence. The intellectual leader of the convention was James Madison of Virginia, whose careful preparation and detailed notes have given us the most complete record of the debates. Other key figures included the eloquent Gouverneur Morris and the brilliant but controversial Alexander Hamilton. For 4 long, hot summer months, these men debated, argued, and compromised. The discussions were held in strict secrecy. The windows were kept shut to prevent eavesdroppers, and the delegates were sworn not to speak of the proceedings outside the room. They grappled with fundamental questions about the nature of power and representation. How could a government be strong enough to be effective, yet not so strong as to become tyrannical? How could the interests of large states and small states be balanced? How should the issue of slavery, the great contradiction to the nation's founding ideals, be addressed? The debates were fierce, and at times it seemed the convention would collapse. But through compromise, such as the Great Compromise that created a 2-house legislature, they managed to forge a new framework for the nation. On September 17, 1787, the final draft of the United States Constitution was signed by 39 of the delegates. Benjamin Franklin, ever the optimist, looked at the sun carved on the back of George Washington's chair. He remarked that artists often found it difficult to distinguish a rising sun from a setting sun, but now at length, he said, I have the happiness to know that it is a rising and not a setting sun. The document they created in that room established a revolutionary system of government with 3 separate branches and a system of checks and balances. It was a blueprint for a durable republic, and Independence Hall had once again served as the crucible where the future of America was forged. After the federal capital moved from Philadelphia, first to New York and then permanently to Washington, D.C., Independence Hall lost its central role in national affairs. The building returned to more local uses, housing courts and municipal offices for the city of Philadelphia. For a time, its profound historical significance seemed to fade from public memory. The second floor was even used as a museum by the artist Charles Willson Peale, who filled the long gallery with portraits of revolutionary figures and natural history specimens, including a mastodon skeleton. While Peale's museum helped preserve the memory of the founders, the building itself began to suffer from neglect and, honestly, some inappropriate alterations. The original wooden steeple became dangerously decayed and was removed in 1781. The revival of interest in Independence Hall as a national shrine began in the 1820s, sparked by a wave of patriotic fervor surrounding the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The visit of the Marquis de Lafayette in 1824, the celebrated French hero of the Revolution, brought thousands of people to the building to honor him and remember the nation's founding. This renewed attention led to the first major restoration efforts. A new, more elaborate steeple, designed by architect William Strickland, was built in 1828 to replace the one that had been torn down. While not an exact replica of the original, it restored the building's iconic silhouette and, really signaled a growing commitment to preserving this sacred place. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, efforts to restore and protect Independence Hall continued. The city of Philadelphia took ownership of the entire building in 1816 with the intention of preserving it for the public. By the mid-19th century, the Assembly Room was restored to an appearance that was believed to resemble its 1776 condition, and it became a place of public pilgrimage. Abraham Lincoln's body lay in state in the Assembly Room in 1865, linking the nation's birth with its struggle for rebirth and the end of slavery. In the 20th century, the National Park Service took over management of the building and the surrounding area, creating Independence National Historical Park to ensure its long-term preservation and interpretation. These extensive preservation efforts have been guided by a deep respect for the building's history. Modern restoration work has been meticulous, using historical documents, drawings, and archaeological evidence to return the building as closely as possible to its 18th century appearance. The goal has been to strip away later additions and modifications to reveal the authentic setting where the Declaration and Constitution were created. This ongoing work ensures that when visitors walk through Independence Hall today, they are stepping into a space that the founders themselves would recognize. It is a testament to the enduring American desire to connect with the origins of their nation and to honor the place where its founding principles were first enshrined. In 1979, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, designated Independence Hall as a World Heritage Site. This prestigious honor placed it in the same category as the Pyramids of Egypt, the Great Wall of China, and the Palace of Versailles. The designation recognized that the events that took place within its walls were of, outstanding universal value. It really affirmed that Independence Hall is not just an American treasure, but a part of the shared heritage of all humanity. The principles of freedom and self-government that were debated and adopted here have had a profound and lasting impact on people and governments all over the world, making this modest brick building a global landmark of political thought. The ideas enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution have served as a powerful model for other nations. The concept that all people have fundamental rights and that government should be based on the consent of the governed was truly revolutionary in the 18th century. These principles have inspired countless independence movements, from the French Revolution in the late 18th century to the decolonization movements of the 20th century. Leaders and reformers from across the globe have looked to the American experiment, born in Independence Hall, as a blueprint for creating their own democratic societies. The building is a physical embodiment of the universal aspiration for liberty and human dignity. The U.S. Constitution, drafted in the Assembly Room, introduced innovative concepts of governance that have been widely adopted. The idea of a written constitution that limits the power of government, the separation of powers into legislative, executive, and judicial branches, and the system of checks and balances were all groundbreaking. Many countries, when drafting their own constitutions, have borrowed heavily from the American model. Therefore, the debates that took place in Philadelphia in 1787 had consequences that reached far beyond the 13 original states. They provided a new vocabulary and a new framework for thinking about how to structure a free and stable society. Visiting Independence Hall today allows people from every nation to connect with these universal ideals at their source. It is a place where international visitors can stand in the very room where the foundational documents of modern democracy were created. It serves as a powerful reminder that the struggle for freedom is a shared human endeavor. In a world with diverse political systems, Independence Hall stands as a beacon, representing the enduring power of an idea that ordinary citizens can come together to shape their own destiny and build a government that protects their rights. Its status as a World Heritage Site rightfully acknowledges its role as the cradle of a political philosophy that has reshaped the modern world. A visit to Independence Hall is, honestly, a journey back in time, allowing one to walk in the footsteps of the nation's founders. The heart of the building is the Assembly Room, located on the ground floor in the East Wing. This is arguably the most important room in American history. It is here that the Second Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, and it is here that the delegates of the Constitutional Convention framed the U.S. Constitution. The room has been meticulously restored to its 18th century appearance. The tables are arranged as they were, covered in green baize cloth with quill pens and inkstands at the ready. Standing in this space, you can almost hear the passionate debates that echoed off these walls. At the front of the Assembly Room, on a raised platform, sits one of the most significant artifacts in the building, the Rising Sun Chair. This was the chair used by George Washington as he presided over the long and difficult months of the Constitutional Convention. It was from this seat that he maintained order and guided the often contentious discussions. The chair gets its name from the half-sun carved into its crest. It was this carving that prompted Benjamin Franklin's famous optimistic remark on the final day of the convention. Seeing the chair in person provides a tangible link to Washington's leadership and the hopeful spirit that ultimately prevailed in the creation of the Constitution. Across the central hall from the Assembly Room is the Supreme Court Room. While the events here were not as famous as those across the hall, this room played a crucial role in the government of colonial Pennsylvania. This is where the colony's highest court met, and the room is furnished to reflect its use as a courtroom in the 18th century. It features a raised bench for the justices and a prisoner's dock. Seeing this room helps visitors understand the building's original purpose as a comprehensive center of colonial government, responsible for both making the law and administering justice. It provides important context for the revolutionary events that would later take place next door. The West Wing of Independence Hall, which was reconstructed in the 20th century, offers further insight into the period. It houses exhibits that detail the workings of the Continental Congress and the creation of the new nation. Here, Visitors can see reproductions of important documents and learn more about the day-to-day business that was conducted on this site. One of the key features is a display of the original inkstand known as the Sing inkstand that is believed to have been used to sign both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. These rooms and artifacts work together to create a powerful and immersive experience, transforming the abstract ideas of history into a tangible reality that visitors can see and feel. Today, Independence Hall is the centerpiece of Independence National Historical Park, which is managed by the National Park Service. Visiting the site is a carefully curated educational experience designed to bring history to life for a modern audience. Access to the hall itself is typically by a timed, ticketed tour led by a park ranger. This structured approach ensures that the historic building is protected from overcrowding while allowing visitors to receive a wealth of information. The rangers are expert storytellers who do more than just recite facts and dates. They share the human stories behind the historic events, explaining the challenges, the conflicts, and the compromises that define the work of the founders. The educational journey begins even before you step inside the building. The surrounding park includes numerous other historic sites that provide context for the events that happened in the hall. Visitors can see Congress Hall, where the U.S. Congress met from 1790 to 1800, and Old City Hall, which housed the U.S. Supreme Court during the same period. Most famously, across the street stands the Liberty Bell Center, home to the iconic Liberty Bell. Seeing the bell, with its famous crack and its inscription to proclaim liberty, is an essential part of the experience. These surrounding sites help visitors understand that Independence Hall was the hub of a vibrant, functioning capital city during the nation's formative years. Inside Independence Hall, the tour provides a deep dive into the meaning of the rooms and the objects within them. The park rangers encourage visitors to think critically about the past. They discuss not only the triumphs of the founders but also their failings and contradictions, particularly the compromise over slavery that was embedded in the Constitution. This honest and nuanced approach helps visitors understand that the story of America is complex and that the nation's journey toward fulfilling the promise of the Declaration is ongoing. The experience is designed to be more than a simple history lesson. It is an invitation to reflect on the rights and responsibilities of citizenship today. For those who want to learn even more, the park offers a wide range of educational resources. There are museum exhibits in the West Wing, visitor centers with films and displays, and a wealth of online materials for students and teachers. The goal is to make the story of Independence Hall accessible to everyone, from young children to seasoned historians. By providing these diverse learning opportunities, the National Park Service ensures that the lessons of Independence Hall are not confined to the past. It empowers visitors to understand the origins of their government and to appreciate the ongoing relevance of the debates about freedom, power, and justice that took place in this sacred space. Independence Hall remains profoundly important today because it is more than just a well-preserved historic building. It stands as the enduring physical symbol of self-governance. In an age when democratic principles are often tested and debated, this simple brick structure serves as a powerful anchor. It reminds us of the radical and courageous idea that a nation's people can be its ultimate authority. The work done within its walls established a government designed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. This principle, born in Philadelphia, continues to be the foundation of American democracy and a source of inspiration for free people everywhere. It is a constant reminder of the great experiment that began here. The building also symbolizes the power of compromise and reasoned debate. The delegates who met in the assembly room were not in universal agreement. They were men with strong opinions and competing interests. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were not the products of a single mind, but the result of intense discussion, argument, and ultimately, compromise. Independence Hall teaches us that progress in a diverse society requires a willingness to listen, to persuade, and to find common ground. In a modern world often characterized by political polarization, the hall stands as a monument to the difficult but essential work of forging unity out of division for the common good. Furthermore, Independence Hall represents a promise that is still being fulfilled. The ideals of liberty and equality articulated in the Declaration of Independence were not fully realized in 1776. The rights it proclaimed were not extended to all people. The story of American history since that time has been a long and often difficult struggle to close the gap between the nation's founding ideals and its reality. The building is therefore not just a monument to a past achievement, but a starting point for an ongoing journey. It challenges each new generation of Americans to continue the work of creating a more perfect union, and to ensure that the promise of freedom applies to everyone. Ultimately, Independence Hall is a place of hope. It is a testament to the fact that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when they are guided by a noble vision. It shows that a future of freedom and self-determination can be imagined and then built through courage, intellect, and hard work. When we look upon Independence Hall today, on this day in 2025, we see more than brick and mortar. We see the birthplace of a nation and the physical embodiment of an idea that changed the world. It is a symbol that tells us that the future is not preordained, but is something we can shape ourselves, just as the founders did in that hallowed room so long ago.
Ready for a history adventure? Join our community. Subscribe to World History, smash that like, share with friends, and drop your thoughts below. Let's make history together. See you in the comments.